The Jackson family's darkest secret from the 1990s has finally been exposed after decades of silence. What really happened during Michael's abuse allegations tore the family apart in ways fans never knew.
We all know Paris Jackson. We know she's a daughter of late King of Pop, but she's upset about some payments that aren't making their way to her.
While the world saw a united family defending Michael, behind closed doors, his own sister was secretly planning to destroy him.
This is very difficult for me, that Michael is my brother. I love him a great deal, but I cannot and I will not be a silent collaborator of his crimes against small, innocent children.
Toya Jackson's shocking betrayal in 1993 revealed family secrets that went far deeper than anyone imagined.
Gordon gave me this piece of paper and he says, read this. He goes, you better say this, you say this.
Jack Gordon forced you to say that your brother was a Did you think he was?
No, I did not.
The confession that destroyed their brotherhood forever was hidden from the public for over 30 years. So, let's get into it. The Jackson Five started as five young brothers living in a tiny house at 2300 Jackson Street in Gary, Indiana. Jackie was 19. Tito played guitar. Jermaine sang lead vocals. Marlon danced. And Michael was just 11 years old when they signed with Motown in 1968.
We lived in Gary, Indiana. My father worked in the steel mill, and we lived on a street called Jackson Street. Coincidentally, that was the name of the street. And imagine 9 kids living in a 2-bedroom house.
Joe Jackson discovered Tito playing with his guitar after breaking a string in 1964.
Tito was sneaking in the closet playing my father's guitar, and then he broke one of the strings. My father came home and saw what had happened, so he said, who played my guitar? And Tito said, I did. So he said, well, show me what you know how to do. So we started playing the guitar, and then we started singing, and that's how it all started.
Within months, Joe had molded his sons into a vocal group that Berry Gordy signed to Motown Records. They became the first group in history to debut with 4 consecutive #1 hits on the Billboard Hot 100.
My father is responsible for that because he made us rehearse.
Yeah.
And you have to be the best. Yeah, well, we were always rehearsing as kids, and my father training us and really preparing us. Getting the respect from us at an early age, and it had a lot to do with whippings.
Their songs dominated radio stations across America. I Want You Back, ABC, The Love You Save, and I'll Be There turned 5 black boys from Gary into global superstars. They appeared on every major television show, sold millions of records, and became the most famous family in America.
Shelly Berger, who was a manager and worked for me, started booking them, and he guaranteed me that their very first date, they would make $25,000 their first date. Yeah. And that was like impossible for a new group who had never had a date before. And Shelly Berger was right, and they went on from there to become what they became.
The brothers were inseparable on stage, performing with matching outfits and synchronized choreography. Michael's voice could make grown adults cry, while his brothers provided the perfect backdrop for his talent. But behind the Motown image, cracks were already forming. Joe Jackson enforced grueling practice sessions and pushed his sons relentlessly. By 1975, the original Jackson 5 lineup was fracturing. The brothers left Motown for Epic Records, but Jermaine stayed behind because he had married Berry Gordy's daughter, Randy Jackson, replaced Jermaine, and they became the Jacksons. But the magic was fading.
And I just don't like it when they try to separate him from us, because we all started together. And it could have been a lot of influence from outside people saying, your family's gonna hold you back. Once the act gets so big, there's so many people that come around, the legal people and everyone, and they sort of almost pull you away.
Michael's success with Off the Wall and Thriller sent his solo career into the stratosphere, but it also created jealousy among his brothers that poisoned their relationships for decades. The 5 young brothers who once shared everything now lived separate lives in separate mansions, pursuing solo careers that drove them further apart. Today, Those same brothers look nothing like the young men who once ruled the charts. Jackie is 73 and has the weathered face of someone who has watched his family destroy itself. Jermaine, now 70, spends his time defending Michael's memory in courtrooms instead of on concert stages. Marlon, 67, has retreated from the music industry entirely, running a peace foundation while his family wages war against each other.
All your brothers there and you're on stage, you know what Michael's gonna do, you know what Jackie's gonna do with Tita's, because Michael was always on my right, so yeah. And we kind of play off of each other, but it's been like that since we were very young.
The house at 2300 Jackson Street still stands in Gary, Indiana, now marked with highway signs. But the brothers who made that address legendary can barely stand to be in the same room together. The cute kids who once made audiences scream are now old men who need lawyers to communicate with each other. Michael Jackson's transformation from cute kid singer to the king of pop destroyed his family forever. The same talent that made the Jackson 5 famous eventually became the wedge that split the brothers apart and set the stage for the current family warfare.
There were just times when we just didn't see eye to eye on things, because I wanted him to not get so far away from the family because of the success. And so we had meetings and stuff, and I said, listen, I'm just not here because of me. It's Reebie, Jackie, this one and that one. And we need to be close because the success with the Thriller album and this and that, all those things, and then it brought on all these other people who wanted to become his brothers, his sisters, his mother, his father. That's what my concerns were.
When Michael released Off the Wall in 1979, his brothers realized they were no longer equals. The shy kid who used to hide behind them on stage was suddenly selling millions of records as a solo artist, while the Jacksons struggled to find their identity without him. The jealousy and resentment started as whispered conversations behind closed doors and eventually became public feuds that lasted decades. Thriller changed everything in 1982. Michael didn't just become successful, he became the most famous person on the planet. His brothers went from being members of a legendary group to being known as Michael Jackson's siblings. The hierarchy that Joe Jackson had tried to avoid was now set in stone, with Michael at the top and everyone else fighting for scraps.
Jermaine, as I think you know, on this program last September, your sister LaToya said,
Jermaine is definitely jealous of him. I mean, it's very blatant that he's very jealous of Michael, or anybody that succeeds in that matter in the family.
The 1984 Victory Tour exposed the deep fractures that Thriller had created. Michael's brothers needed him to sell tickets, but Michael had outgrown the group format entirely. The tour was marked by constant conflict over finances, creative control, and billing. Michael's demands for artistic freedom clashed with his brother's desperation to maintain relevance. Behind the scenes, Michael was already struggling with pressures that would eventually kill him. The skin condition changing his appearance, the surgical procedures altering his face, and the increasing isolation from his family were all symptoms of a man who couldn't handle being the most scrutinized person alive.
What is it, 1984 to 1992? You saw Michael maybe 3 times a year during that period?
Yes.
You sent him letters,
yes,
packages, but he never responded to any of them.
No.
Why didn't he want to see you, Jermaine?
It's not that he didn't want to see me.
He could have picked up the phone and seen you anytime he wanted.
No, Michael don't call.
The child abuse allegations that began in 1993 didn't just threaten Michael's career, they threatened the entire Jackson legacy. Suddenly, the family that had represented Black excellence was associated with scandal and criminal investigations. Michael's brothers found themselves in the impossible position of defending someone they barely spoke to anymore, while protecting their own reputations. Michael's marriages to Lisa Marie Presley and Debbie Rowe, his increasingly erratic public behavior, and his financial troubles all played out in the media, while his brothers watched helplessly from the sidelines. The man who had once been the center of their universe was now a stranger living in a fantasy world they couldn't understand or access.
Michael comes from a family. He comes from the Jackson family. And when he hurts, we hurt. When he does great, we all do great. When he does bad, we all do bad. So we're a family.
The prescription drug abuse that ultimately killed Michael was an open secret among those close to him. But his brothers had been shut out of his inner circle years earlier, when Michael died from propofol intoxication in June 2009. His siblings learned about it the same way the rest of the world did, through news reports and frantic phone calls. Michael's death at age 50 should have brought his brothers together in grief, but instead, it triggered the legal warfare that continues today. The man who had been both the family's greatest blessing and their biggest burden was gone, leaving behind an estate worth billions and children who barely knew their famous uncles.
I saw him laying in the room and he was lifeless, breathless, and he just, as if it was a shell, and he was just there.
Michael's talent gave the Jackson family everything: fame, fortune, and a place in music history. But that same talent ultimately destroyed the bonds between the brothers and created the circumstances that led to his early death. The cute 11-year-old who once made audiences fall in love with the Jackson 5 became a tragic figure whose legacy now divides his family instead of uniting them. Today, Michael's brothers spend more time in courtrooms than recording studios, fighting over the estate of someone they barely spoke to in his final years. The King of Pop's rise to superstardom created a family dynamic so toxic that his own children are now at war with the uncles who helped raise him. Michael Jackson's death on June 25, 2009 was supposed to bring his family together in grief. Instead, it triggered a legal war that has been raging for 16 years and shows no signs of ending. The man who owed over $500 million when he died became the center of a multi-billion-dollar empire that has turned his relatives into enemies.
Michael Jackson's father tells a New York newspaper his son will be buried August 29th on what would have been his 51st birthday. Meanwhile, the battle is heating up this morning over Jackson's estate.
Within hours of Michael's death, the fighting began. His mother, Catherine, his 3 children, and his siblings all had different ideas about who should control his legacy and how his estate should be managed. The will that named attorneys John Branca and John McClain as executors immediately became controversial, with family members questioning its validity and fighting for control. Catherine Jackson became the guardian of Michael's 3 children, Prince, Paris, and Biggie. But that role put her in direct conflict with the estate executors who controlled the money. The same woman who had once held the family together now found herself at the center of legal battles that would tear them apart permanently.
And the Wall Street Journal says that will divides the estate among Jackson's children and his mother.
The estate's transformation from massive debt to multi-billion-dollar empire happened faster than anyone expected. Branca and McClain negotiated deals for concert films, Cirque du Soleil shows, and music catalog sales that generated hundreds of millions in revenue. But every financial success created new tensions within the family about who deserved credit and compensation. Michael's brothers watched from the sidelines as executives who had barely known their brother turned his name into a billion-dollar brand. The men who had performed alongside Michael for decades had no say in decisions about his music, his image, or his legacy. The estate that was supposed to honor their brother's memory felt like a machine designed to keep them powerless.
There's tremendous drama that's associated with them, and there's a heck of a lot of money.
The first major family crisis came in 2012, when Catherine Jackson temporarily disappeared for over a week. Family members had signed a letter challenging the executors and questioning Michael's will. But when Catherine couldn't be reached, a missing person report was filed. The incident revealed how fractured the family had already become, with siblings choosing sides and grandchildren caught in the middle. Paris Jackson's attempted suicide in 2013 showed the human cost of the family's legal warfare. The teenager who had lost her father was now watching her relatives tear each other apart over his money. The estate battles weren't just about finances. They were destroying the emotional stability of Michael's children.
She is is Michael Jackson's only daughter, and early this morning, in a scene eerily reminiscent of her father's final hours, she was rushed to the hospital. It was an apparent suicide attempt.
The situation got worse when Catherine Jackson began challenging major estate decisions, particularly the 2024 sale of half of Michael's music catalog to Sony for $600 million. Catherine argued that the sale violated Michael's wishes and went against his will, but the appeals court ruled against her, stating that the executors had full authority to make such deals. Catherine's legal challenges created a rift between her and Michael's children that has never healed. When the court battles dragged on for years, draining estate resources and creating negative publicity, Michael's kids began to see their grandmother's lawsuits as threats to their inheritance rather than protection of their father's legacy.
It's unclear if all this is related to the reported $600 million sale of half of Jackson's music catalog to Sony, including iconic songs like Billie Jean.
The most shocking betrayal came from within the next generation. In March 2024, Michael's youngest son, Biggie, filed legal papers to prevent his grandmother from using estate funds for her legal battles. The same boy who Catherine had raised since he was 7 years old was now asking judges to cut off her funding. The family that once shared everything now communicates primarily through lawyers and court filings. Catherine Jackson, who at 95 should be surrounded by loving grandchildren, instead finds herself isolated and fighting legal battles against the estate that supports her.
BG wants to block Catherine from using estate dollars to pay for a court appeal. Now, the documents don't spell out exactly what Catherine's appealing, but they do say the court recently gave the estate's executors approval to move forward with a transaction of paramount significance to BG, both financially and personally.
Michael's death created an impossible situation where his family's love for him became secondary to their fights over his money. The estate that was designed to take care of his children and mother has instead become the source of their destruction. 16 years later, the war that began with Michael's last breath continues to rage, with no end in sight. The Jackson family's nightmare began on August 17, 1993, when 13-year-old Jordan Chandler filed a civil lawsuit accusing Michael Jackson of sexual abuse. Within weeks, the LAPD and the Los Angeles Department of Children's Services launched investigations. The family that had built their reputation on wholesome entertainment suddenly found themselves defending against the most serious allegations imaginable. The allegations created an immediate crisis within the Jackson family. Jermaine and Jackie stood firmly behind Michael, appearing at press conferences and issuing statements of support.
My brother never touched anyone, and they knew this, and the media knew this too, but they figure, let's say Michael did this. Why? Because it's going to create ratings, it's going to create newspapers, and they knew the difference, they knew the truth.
But other family members weren't so certain. Private conversations became tense, with whispered doubts and heated arguments about what Michael was capable of. Toya Jackson broke ranks first. In 1993, during a press conference at the Tel Aviv Hilton, she publicly accused Michael of sexually abusing children. She claimed she had seen checks Michael wrote to buy silence and that the family had covered up his behavior for years. Her accusations sent shockwaves through the Jackson clan. Catherine Jackson was devastated. The woman who had raised all her children to protect each other was now watching one of them destroy another on international television.
This is very difficult for me, that Michael is my brother. I love him a great deal, but I cannot and I will not be a silent collaborator of his crimes against small, innocent children. And if I remain silent, then that means that I feel the guilt and the humiliation that these children are feeling, and I think it's very wrong.
Toya's betrayal created a permanent rift in the family. Her brothers refused to speak to her. Her mother stopped taking her calls. She was effectively excommunicated from the Jackson family. Years later, Toya would recant her accusations, claiming she had been coerced by her abusive husband, Jack Gordon. But the damage was done. Her siblings never fully trusted her again. The 1994 settlement with Jordan Chandler for an estimated $15 to $25 million was supposed to end the crisis. Instead, it created new problems. The payment, while not an admission of guilt, looked suspicious to the public and to some family members. Michael's brothers found themselves defending a settlement they privately questioned while publicly supporting their brother's innocence. The 2005 criminal trial in Santa Barbara brought all the family trauma back into the spotlight. This time, Michael faced multiple felony charges that could have sent him to prison for decades. The trial lasted 4 months and featured testimony from alleged victims, employees, and family members. Catherine Jackson attended court nearly every day, sitting in the front row to support her son.
I was so outraged because I know my son wouldn't do anything like that. And Michael was on tour, and so I called Bill Bray at the time, who was his security guard, and told him, you get back here because they're accusing Michael of something I know he didn't do.
When Michael was acquitted on all charges in June 2005, the family's relief was mixed with exhaustion and lingering questions. The trial had exposed their private dysfunction to the world and created fractures in relationships that never fully healed. Michael's relationship with some of his brothers became more distant, and family gatherings became increasingly rare as Michael retreated further into his private world. The posthumous allegations from Wade Robson and James Safechuck in Leaving Neverland reopened wounds that had never properly healed. These weren't strangers making accusations. Robson had testified in Michael's defense during the 2005 trial, and both men had been close to the family for years.
You know, Michael just sort of starting to touch my legs and touch my crotch over my pants, and then it kind of kept progressing from there. He would grab my hand and have me do the same thing to you know, his crotch over his pants, and then it progressed to him performing oral.
The documentary forced the Jackson family to relive the trauma all over again. But this time, Michael wasn't alive to defend himself. The abuse allegations created a toxic atmosphere that poisoned every family relationship. Uncle Michael, who had been beloved by the next generation of Jacksons, became someone they couldn't be alone with. Family gatherings became awkward affairs, where Michael was either avoided entirely or surrounded by watchful adults. The psychological impact on Michael's brothers was devastating. They had to defend someone they barely spoke to anymore while protecting their own reputations and careers. Every interview, every public appearance became a potential landmine where they might be asked about the allegations. 16 years after Michael's death, and 30 years after the first abuse allegations, the surviving Jackson brothers are shells of their former selves. The estate battles, legal fees, and constant family warfare have taken their toll. These men who conquered the world together can now barely function as a family. When Tito Jackson died of a heart attack in September 2024 at age 70, his surviving brothers learned about it through Instagram posts from his children rather than family phone calls. The communication breakdown that started during the estate wars had become so complete that major family news now travels through social media rather than direct contact. Jackie, Jermaine, and Marlon found out their brother was dead the same way the general public did. Tito's death highlighted just how isolated the remaining brothers have become. There was no family gathering to plan the funeral together, no shared mourning process. Each brother dealt with their grief separately, releasing individual statements through their representatives rather than speaking as a united family. Jackie Jackson is 73 years old and looks every day of it. He carries himself like a man who has fought too many battles he never wanted to fight. His face shows the weight of watching his family destroy itself over money and lawsuits. He rarely gives interviews anymore, and when he does, his voice carries a weariness that wasn't there during the Jackson 5 days. Jermaine Jackson has appointed himself the family's public face, but the role has aged him badly. He spends his time giving interviews defending Michael's legacy and the family's reputation, but his words often ring hollow because everyone knows how dysfunctional things really are behind closed doors. His face shows the strain of constantly having to present a united front while the family crumbles in private.
So, what has happened that people don't know? It's Wade changed his story that he maintained before and after Michael's death. He tried to go out and shop a book deal. No publisher would touch it.
Marlon Jackson has essentially given up on his famous siblings entirely. After losing his twin brother Brandon at birth, then watching Michael and Tito die while the family tore itself apart, he's retreated to his Study Peace Foundation. Marlon rarely speaks to Jackie or Jermaine anymore, communicating only through lawyers when absolutely necessary. The practical effects of their estrangement are visible everywhere. There are no Jackson family Christmas gatherings, no joint appearances at award shows or tributes, no collaborative projects or reunion plans. When one of them has a health scare or personal crisis, the others learn about it through entertainment news rather than family phone calls. Catherine Jackson, now 95, is caught between her surviving sons and her grandchildren, with different factions pulling her in different directions. Her advanced age and declining health means she can no longer serve as the family mediator she once was. The woman who kept everyone together for decades is now just another source of conflict as different family members compete for her attention and approval. The three surviving original Jackson 5 members, Jackie, Jermaine, and Marlon, are spending what should be their golden years as bitter adversaries. The cute kids who made America fall in love on The Ed Sullivan Show are now old men who can't be in the same room without their lawyers present. Their children and grandchildren have grown up watching this dysfunction, and many want nothing to do with the Jackson legacy. Some have legally changed their names to distance themselves from the family brand. Others have moved far from Los Angeles to escape the constant drama. The third and fourth generations of Jacksons are scattered across the country, many having consciously chosen to reject the fame and fortune that destroyed their elders. Anyway, that's it for the video, folks. Bye,